r/askreddit. What is a lesson you only had to learn once? What's the story behind it? Sire, cover your ass at work. Being the new person sucks at an office, and insisting on proper treatment can feel like a mistake, but it's so worthwhile. Started working at an office with very little in written expectations, processes, or training. Red flags were everywhere, but I was a newbie in the field and really needed a job, so I missed some red flags and ignored others. One thing that I absolutely got right, by accident, was a hardcore SIRE program. I wrote down everything during training, thinking I would train the next person better. I wrote down everything I was asked to do, trying to keep organized and not miss any assignment or task. I kept a copy of all of this on my Google Calendar Google Docs. After I left, I found out my boss was blaming me for a number of misses that were demonstrably not my fault. I ended up having to sue, and thank God I had a record to back me up. Funny how quickly asking someone "can I get that in writing" can change their whole attitude. This is why I prefer email over phone or in-person conversations. It's so nice having a written record. A good lawyer knows the law, a great lawyer knows the judge. Or as Harvey Specter would say, don't play the odds, play the man. Highest stakes case I ever went to court was for a couple months in jail, couple $1,000 fine. Nothing too serious, but I didn't want to lose. The guy rescheduled the court date due because he can't make it. Mild panic, until I came out on the big day and he's bald, walking with a cane. He rescheduled to get chemo. Turns out he has cancer and this will be his last case ever. The judge let me off with a $200 fine and said a sincere goodbye to the lawyer. He billed me $500 for taking the case. I couldn't really say anything meaningful to the guy besides thank you, but sometimes I think of Anton Steli and pour out a drink. Never lend anything to your older brother's friends. Case in point, I let him borrow my cool wood baseball bat. After waiting 3 months to get it back, I get it returned split in half. My older sister had a friend when I was a kid. They let her borrow my Spryo, Riptus Rage. Didn't get it back for months, and when we did, it came back without the case and so scratched up the system couldn't read it. I cried my eyes out and dad had to go and buy a new one. I don't think she was allowed to borrow anything again after that. No matter how much you hate loneliness, it's better to be alone than to be in a bad relationship. I feel this deep in my soul. Everyone is willing to take advantage of you. As a student in college a while back, I worked as a contractor for a startup and I didn't have a written contract. I worked my ass off for 3 months while they kept delaying my pay. At the end, the owner refused to pay me and stated I could go fuck myself. Tried to get a lawyer, but they said since I didn't have a contract it would be extremely difficult. Just had to file a labor complaint. The lesson here is always getting something on paper. Edit. Quick tip: never fall for the sunken cost fallacy, whether that is a job not paying you or a relationship dying out. What a duck. Hope their business failed. Don't pick up bricks in the warm summer afternoon in the desert. There be roaches. Sorta goes with this. Don't approach a big stack of bricks in the summer if they haven't been moved for a long time. There's a big possibility wasps, hornets will have moved in. Unless you want a quick snack. Saw some pictures of smokers' lungs in a textbook at school. Decided not to smoke for the rest of my life that day. The rest of my life that day. RIP. I saw what happened to my grandparents as a result of smoking. Would leave a dream of it now. Never get in a fight with an inanimate object. It will not get hurt, but you will. I've known too many people that kicked, punched something and broken themselves. Walls don't complain. Yup. Went to school with a guy who got mad and kicked a fish tank. That resulted in a severed Achilles tendon and a long time on crutches. That is actually what killed Jack Daniels. He got into work early one morning to find he had forgotten the combo to the safe. He could have waited for the on-site boss to open it when he came in, but tried again and again to get it himself. He got frustrated, then angry, then he kicked the safe. He broke his toe and got gangrene. By the time he decided to get it amputated, it was spreading and they had to amputate the lower half of his foot. It didn't stop the spread, so they amputated below the knee. That didn't stop the spread, so they amputated below the hip. That didn't stop the spread and he died from gangrene. Source: Took a tour of the Jack Daniel's distillery. Edits, grammar and typos. How to ride a bike. My dad showed me how to ride a bike. I was about 11 years old and I wanted a warm hard-boiled egg. I took the egg out of the refrigerator, peeled it, put the egg in the microwave for about 10 seconds. Took the egg out and bit into it. It exploded when I took the first bite. I had a huge blister on my lip for a few days. Not so bright. Last month I heated an egg in the microwave for a few minutes, trying to hard boil it. If my head was 12 inches to the right when the microwave exploded open and shot glass everywhere, I would be dead right now. Scary stuff. Edit. I hope I'm saving eggs and lives with this information. How roasting yourself in a heavy argument makes the other person very confused and mostly the only thing they can think of is, yes, that. Very helpful. Self-deprecating humor is a great strategy in regular interactions and social situation to become more relatable and charismatic too. Don't overdo it, but if you show you can play a little about yourself, it can exude self-confidence. Don't touch your wang after cutting chilies, even if you think you washed your hands thoroughly. Story is that I touched my wang after cutting chilies, but I thought I had washed my hands thoroughly. If you learn this lesson for yourself, know that soap doesn't help, olive doesn't help, crying doesn't help. The only relief I found was lime juice. I think the acid must cut the capsaicin so you can actually rinse it off. Crying doesn't help, haha, sorry, but that's hilarious. Same goes for removing contacts. BTW. Friend ate hot salsa made from world's hottest pepper and touched his eye afterwards, also after washing hands. Had to go to hospital. Said it hurt for days. Not to be stupid with water guns. I was on holiday with my family and I was about 13 and my dad had bought 2 water guns that worked by you pulling it back as it suctioned the water up. I, being a dumb idiot, decided to suction my lip and it pinged back and cut my lip open. Had to go to hospital abroad and get stitches. The early version of the Kylie lip challenge. You innovator, you. When I first started a job where I had real responsibility, I learned the importance of having written evidence. I was leading a project and needed approval for a $50,000 purchase, still above my pay grade at this time. The timing was tight and needed to give the okay within a few hours. I got a verbal "of course that is okay, hurry and finish it" from my boss. Well, it turns out my boss's boss did not like it. So my boss denied the fact he gave me the go-ahead. My company proceeded to drag their feet to pay the $50,000 bill and I got cursed at by the contracting company and my boss's boss because my boss threw me under the bus. I have since learned to get written approval for everything even if it sets the project behind. I also learned most people in the professional world will do whatever they need to do to shift the blame. Okay, so you learned a lesson. The company who sold you the $50K is also partially responsible. They should have known better than just get a verbal and nothing in writing, especially a verbal from someone junior. No offense to you. I have learned similar lessons too in my business life, from both sides of the equation. Not to get involved in office politics and to never trust HR. I thought I was good friends with the HR woman. She would come in my office and tell me all about her personal life. Even cried to me a few times. She would say things like, "If it weren't for you I wouldn't be able to come in every day." We were friends on social media. So in turn, I felt comfortable to talk about my own problems, especially with my boss. She talked about hers constantly so I didn't feel like it would come back to bite me. Well, as you're expecting, it did. I got pulled into my boss's office with her right there taking notes as he talked to me for 2 hours about my performance and then said, "I know she's a very nice person, but everything you tell her comes right back to me. So if there's anything you'd like to say you can say it now that we're both in here. And just so you know, we're not trapping you." I literally just sat there and took it and just okayed everything and did not say a word. She's avoided me like the plague since and I deleted her on all social media. As you can imagine, I'm currently looking for a new position. 1. Your coworkers are not your friends. You never know what they'll report to another coworker or manager, even inadvertently. 2. Managers are not your friends. Some things you tell them they are required to report to others. They may say something verbally that conflicts with company policy. 3. HR protects the company, not you. As you can imagine, I'm currently looking for a new position. Good call. Don't trust your friend's friends no matter how close they are with each other. My friend's friend was giving me a ride home to my boyfriend at 3 AM after we all hung out, and it ended up with him trying to force me to give him a hug and go to his house. I didn't want to give him a hug or go to his house because I felt uncomfortable doing so, and that triggered him to get aggressive with me. I did absolutely nothing to make him think I would ever do anything with him. I have a boyfriend that I love very much, which was something he knew. He threw my phone out the window, took my glasses off my face, kicked me out of his car and left me in a city that was unfamiliar to me. But not before going all apeshit, smacking me around, keeping me locked in his car for over an hour, speeding past stop signs, yelling at me and cutting me out. Shittiest experience I've had this year. Fuck that idiot. Can't even deny someone a hug without being afraid they might go crazy on me. Not to cheat in relationships. I mean, I already knew to do it at a young age, but seeing how it utterly destroyed my mom really drove it into my brain. Yeah, my dad has cheated on my mom a few times. The worst was when I was 16. Seeing what she went through did a lot to me, but definitely confirmed that cheaters are awful. As a toddler, I wouldn't stop trying to lick electric plugs. My mom was so exhausted of preventing me from touching the plugs, she just stopped doing it. I managed to lick a plug. Never ever tried it again. Use a couple of forms of birth control always. I became a dad when I was at high school still, and I don't regret it or require a time machine, but I also don't recommend it for other 16-18-year-olds. Just don't use a couple of the same form of birth control. Effectiveness of condoms versus the number of condoms simultaneously used. 0. 1. High. 2. Low. The URL for the sporting goods store Dick's is dickssportinggoods.com. I think they now have dicks.com too, but they didn't use 2. My home phone number used to be 1 digit off from the local Dick's Sporting Goods number. I would occasionally get phone calls where the call just started Dick's or is this Dick's? I would often answer with something along the lines of, yep, you've reached the biggest Dick's in the tri-state area, or you've got it, biggest Dick's you've ever seen. Don't touch the top of the stove when it's switched on. When you're having a problem with a co-worker, whoever presents their story to management first almost always comes out on top. Never lend money. Got an inheritance years ago, whilst with my now ex-girlfriend. She had a big credit card bill from living by herself. I suggested I pay it, she pay me back in installments. Stops me spending it and saves her on interest. I then decided I want to do some traveling, encourage her to come interrailing with me. She doesn't want to. So I go for a month around Europe. She slowly stopped replying to texts, had it out with her one day whilst in Lake Bled over text. She felt I'd abandoned her, etc. Basically we broke up there and then. Still agreed she'd pay me back once she got herself set up in new place. 5 years later and I've got nothing. She accused me of cheating whilst I was away. Changed phone. £4 I'll never get back. Lending money to anyone is a bad idea unless you can afford the loss. I had a really good experience once though. A friend of mine asked me for $700 so he could pay for his studies. He was a good friend and always invited me to parties without me paying a single dime, so I thought I would give him that in return. 2 weeks later he calls me and tells me he's got my money plus interest. Shit, I was so surprised. He never asked me again for money and we are still friends. Everyone, including your parents, deserve to have their motives, morality, and actions questioned. My father tried to raise me to the ideals he thought were important, especially that weed would ruin my life if I ever smoked it, but somehow forgot that it was wrong to molest my sister. That actually gave me quite a few lessons that I only needed to learn once. Get a bedroom door that locks. That memory is still painful. Hey, give me your item, I'll upgrade it for free. You know in cartoons when the character steps on a rake and they get hit in the face? It's funny when Daffy Duck does it, not so funny when you're 6 years old and give it a try. That was an early do not try this at home realization. Drinking too much Southern Comfort will make you very, very, very sick. It was my first real experience with alcohol and it was decades ago, but just the smell of SoCo still makes my stomach turn. Don't get things out of a toaster over with a paper towel. I nearly set my parents' kitchen on fire at 5 years old trying to make myself a Pop-Tart. I ran into my parents' bedroom early in the morning yelling fire fire fire. Edit. To clarify, by toaster oven I mean a convection toaster oven. Not a toaster. I didn't like sticking my hands in the oven because it's hot and I didn't want to burn myself. Wear a cup when playing goalie. Don't touch a belt on a machine that's running. Just tapped it and it sucked my finger into the pulley and chopped the end of my thumb off almost all the way to the end of my nail. Nothing to reattach either, just gotta have a nubby thumb forever. Will never do that again. Also, this happened last week and I'm 36 lol. What's the best way to remember your wife's birthday? Forget once. Keep your mouth shut when dealing with the police. Story. Got arrested over a bacon sandwich. Steamin'. Walking home with a couple of friends. We'd gotten into the habit of going back to my house at the end of the night and making monster bacon sandwiches, instead of getting dodgy takeaway. Walked past a parked police car at the exact moment I drunkenly, and thus loudly, proclaimed I could murder a bacon sandwich. Police officer jumped out and confronted me. He thought I was obliquely calling him a pig. I hadn't even seen the police car there. We argued. My contention was that A. I wanted a bacon sandwich. And B. He couldn't arrest me even if I had called him a pig to his face. His contention was that he could arrest me. And he did. A night in the cells ensued. Got a police issue bacon sandwich in the morning though, so I won in the end. Never believe a woman when they say they're not hungry. My friend did just that and said she was not hungry, and the minute I got food from a restaurant, she took it. Swimming, or more like staying afloat whilst simultaneously reaching land. When I was 4, my dad threw me into the deep end of our local family-friendly pool. Best believe I learned shit right there and then and swam my little heart out all the way back to my dad.